Hello and welcome to this video on finding the missing coordinates given the midpoint and a point. Okay, if you haven't watched my other video on finding the midpoint and the distance between 2 points, go back and watch that one. And let's try this one now. All right, so find the coordinates of point B given A equals something and M is something, where M is the midpoint. So in the other video, we were given the points A and B, and we were asked to find the midpoint. This time, we're actually given the midpoint. So this is a bit of a problem-solving question. And let's try it out. So the key is to label your points, all right? So I've got A is 4, 2. Now that, I'm just going to call that X1, Y1. Now M is 6, 1. That is XM, YM, the X coordinate of the midpoint, the Y coordinate of the midpoint. Now, the trick here is to realize that we have formulas for XM and YM. Looking at this formula in our formula sheet, XM is calculated using that. YM is calculated using that. Okay, now let's have a look. So XM, let's do it. So we could write things like this. XM is X1 plus X2 divided by 2. Okay, and sometimes it actually helps to write down what you're trying to find. So we're trying to find the coordinates of point B. So this time we don't actually know X2 and Y2. They are unknown. Now, the trick to these is make an equation. Make an equation equating your X coordinate of your midpoint to that bit, and your Y coordinate of your midpoint to that bit, the average Y value. So this is our equation we're going to use. You have to come up with this. Because look at this, we're given the X coordinate of the midpoint, right? We're given the X coordinate of the midpoint. X1, we're given X1, and we're trying to find X2. So we've got an equation with just one unknown, so we can solve it. So let's do it. It's a little bit abstract, but we'll get some practice with it. So the X coordinate of our midpoint, well, we're going to substitute that in. It's a bit of a different one. X coordinate of our midpoint, all right, that's over here. That's number 6. X1 was 4. Plus X2, we don't know, over 2. Now we're just solving an equation. Now some students get a little bit scared that there's a fraction here, but if we're trying to solve an equation with a fraction, just get rid of that denominator first. So to get rid of that denominator, that sign, the fraction sign means divide. So I'm going to multiply that 2 on both sides and get rid of it. Multiply by 2. To get rid of that denominator. 6 times 2 is 12. 4 plus X2. So we multiplied by 2 to get rid of that. Okay. And now it looks a lot simpler, right? I can solve for X2. I'm just going to take away 4 on both sides. 12 take 4 is 8. And we're left with X because those 4s get rid of each other. So that is the coordinates of point B. I mean, that's the X coordinate of point B. Ooh. Okay. All right. So now we are going to find the Y coordinate of point B. And I'm just going to shrink that a bit so that I have space. Y coordinate of point B. Now that's looking at just using this little thing that the Y coordinate of the midpoint is the average Y value. So let's go. Y, we're using this. We've come up with Y coordinate of the midpoint is the average Y value. Now let's check what we've got. What's the Y coordinate of our midpoint? Well, it's 1. Substituting on that left-hand side. Don't be afraid to do that. So now we've got y1 plus y2. So y1 is 2 plus y2, well, we don't know it. We're trying to find it. But that's okay. We've got an equation with just one unknown. We can solve it. All right. So there's a fraction here. We want to get rid of it. We want to rearrange for this guy. Any fractions, just multiply them out to get rid of them. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 because that fraction sign means divide. So 1 times 2 is 2. The 2's here will cancel. And we're left with 2 plus y2. There's that numerator. And then we can just solve it. So y2, we're going to take away 2 from both sides to get rid of this guy. And the 2's cancel. 2 take 2 is 0. So we are given, I won't call that y2, well, let's call it the y coordinate of our point B. So coordinates of point B are 0. Oh, wait. Ooh. X, Y, right? So X is 8, Y is 0. Now it's a little bit different, these ones, but it's okay. All right, so let's check out this one. Just one more question to get the hang of it. So we are trying to find the coordinates of a point given another point and the midpoint. And we go to our formula sheet and we realize we're given a formula for midpoint. So that's okay. So let's first of all write what we're given. 0, -1. So I could call this, because I always just want to label my points straight away, x1, y1. And then I've got a midpoint, -3, 2. So the key here is label that x coordinate of midpoint, y coordinate of midpoint. Now on your formula sheet, you have to realize that this is the x coordinate of your midpoint, and this is the y coordinate of your midpoint. Midpoint equals x coordinate midpoint, y coordinate midpoint. All right. So you want to make sure you recognize that. So then we can form an equation. xm is the average x value. Well, actually, let's put an equal sign there. Working vertically makes it look extra weird. x1 plus x2 over 2. And the y coordinate of our midpoint is going to be y1 plus y2 over 2. You're coming up with formulas. All right, so let's try it out. First of all, I'm going to use this one on the left and write it horizontally. Okay, xm equals x1 plus x2 over 2. And then I'm very happy because I realize I have xm. I have x1 and I'm trying to find x2. I'm trying to find the x coordinates of point, that should say point A. So sorry. X coordinate of point A. Let's just call it x2, y2, and we don't know them. So let's do it. We've got x1, we don't know that one. xm was -3. x1 is 0. x2, we are trying to find. Remember? Trying to find it. And now we've done all the hard work. The hard work is realizing you need to come up with 2 little equations. All right. And let's go. -3. If there's a fraction, you want to get rid of it. So times both sides by 2. -3 times 2, -6. We've gotten rid of that denominator, which is great. And nicely done, we can see that x2 is -6. So put a box around it. We're halfway there. All right, so is that gonna... Yeah, okay. So now we've used that information. We're going to find the y coordinate of our midpoint. Looking vertically, ym equals y1 plus y2 on 2. The average y coordinate is the y of your midpoint. Sorry, I couldn't talk for a second. All right, so now let's carefully substitute. I'm looking at the y coordinate of my midpoint over here is 2. And I'm looking for my first, my coordinate of my first point, y coordinate, -1 plus, and y2 is what we're trying to find here. So we leave it as a variable in the equation. Nearly done. Now, if we're given a fraction, get rid of it by timesing out that denominator. 2 times 2 is 4. Those cancel because you divide by 2, then you times by 2. And what have we got? y2, we're going to plus 1 to both sides. Plus 1. 4 plus 1 is 5. So then just make a statement at the end. What is it? We say coordinates of point A is x, y, right? The x is -6. The y is 5. All right. So that is all that I have for you. Okay. Just remembering that you can make equations out of that midpoint formula. You can find the x coordinate of your midpoint by finding the average x values of those 2 points given, or only 1 point's given, and you can find your y coordinate by setting it equal to the average of your y values. Okay, so just, yeah, hopefully that makes sense, all right? And good luck, all right? I'll talk to you soon.